So we had a coding challenge for you last time we finished up the last episode.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
So what I did was add to the address book database that we made, and I created, last week we created a people table, and over the week I created a address book table.
Excellent. You want to
So
share your screen and we'll see what that looks like?
let's do it. All right.
So where are we at here? What is this tool called?
This is Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio.
And short, what's the short name?
SQL Server.
SSMS.
Oh, SSMS.
Yeah.
SS.
That's the SQL Server is actually the service that runs in the background. So you can't see the SQL Server database. There's no user interface for it. But the SQL Server Management Studio allows us to interface with the database itself. Cool. Let's see what you got.
All right. So this is the database that we made. And the table that we made was the people table. And I made the address table.
Very cool. So you see how line 1 has brackets around it?
Yes.
The reason it puts brackets, so you know how in JavaScript you can use a single quote or a double quote to represent a string of characters?
Oh, yes.
So in SQL, it puts the brackets because it's including the space as part of the name. So if you don't want to have the brackets in there, then what you do is you remove the space from the name. Yeah.
There you go.
Let's save that. Cool. So here we have an address table. And this address table, have you tried entering records into it?
Yeah.
And it generates IDs for you and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Okay. And do you have any records in the people table right now?
Yeah, we do.
How many do we have? Can you check?
Oh, I believe there's only 3.
Okay, so we got Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse, and Scooby-Doo, 1, 2, and 3. And how many records do you have in address?
I did 2.
Very cool. Okay, nice. Excellent. Okay, so the reason SSMS is so awesome this makes a developer's life so easy. And it's a curse and it's a blessing at the same time, what I'm about to show you. So go ahead and close all these windows, these tabs that you have open. And you see where it says database diagrams?
Yeah.
Go ahead and expand that and just hit yes. You want to go ahead and enable this database to have database diagrams. And let's go ahead and right click on it and create a new diagram. And go ahead and highlight those 2 tables and add them. And then close that little dialog box. So let's put those somewhere in the center of the canvas. And if you right click on the header of people and you select table view and you select standard, you'll notice that it gives you the designer, you know, from when you design them, right? Mm-hmm. And so you can also create tables here. So let's just go and create a new table just for the sake of creating a new table. Go ahead and right click on empty part of the canvas and new table. And you could just call it temp for now, TEMP. Because we're going to delete this one after. and just put ID, integer, add 2 or 3 fields in there. Okay, that's good. And then you can go ahead and yeah, sort it somewhere. Right click on it, and you can table view, and you could just say columns. Now you'll notice that there's an asterisk on that table. And that means that the table hasn't been saved. So if you were to close this diagram, this table would just disappear. It wouldn't save it. Because if you right click on tables over in the pane over on the left-hand side and refresh, it's still not there. So if you go ahead and save this diagram, it's going to ask you to name the diagram.
Just press save.
Yep.
Or
yeah. Control S. Yeah, just call it a main or something. You could name it whatever you want, really. And it's say, hey, if you want to save the diagram, you also have to save this table. So go ahead and say, yeah. And then refresh your tables now.
oh, there it is.
And it shows up. So this is an even, more advanced designer, right? It's a fragile designer. I'm not gonna say that this is like the best thing since sliced bread. It's actually pretty good once, if you toast it often. Following up on the analogy of the best thing since sliced bread, you got to toast it once in a while to spread some butter, and so it'll melt nice and easy into it, and then it gives it a nice flavor. But the thing about this Canvas editor is that you can create tables, you can do different things with this editor, and it makes it a lot easier. But you'll never be involved in the code of what it takes to create any of these. Okay, let's go ahead and delete that temp table. Just delete from database. Yep. Say, yeah, go ahead and save your diagram. So you have to save it in order for it to reflect. No. Hang on, cancel this. Hit, no, you don't want to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead and hit OK. Okay, go ahead and save this. So if you go to the little disk up on the upper toolbar, yeah, just hit that. And say yes. And then you refresh your tables. You see how it's gone, right? Okay, yeah. So let's go ahead and recreate the people table, but we'll call it temp. Okay, so just do exactly, no, in the canvas itself. Go ahead and recreate that. Call it temp, but you're going to put the same fields as the people table.
Okay.
And then you also want to make it so that it's auto increment.
How do we do that from here? Oh, it's over here.
So you have to highlight the person ID field. And now you can see where it's identity specification. All right. So don't save this just yet. What you want to do is you want to go up to Table Designer, up in the menu. And you want to generate a change script. And go ahead and click in there and then Control A to highlight everything and then copy it.
Maybe just gotta highlight the whole thing with your mouse, I guess. There it is.
Copy it.
Okay.
And then and go ahead and hit no. And let's go ahead and open up a new query. So this is the actual code that you would need to write in order to create a table. And some of this stuff is automatic. So let's turn on line number. You can actually delete lines 1 through 12. And so create table, person ID, int, not null, identity, start at 1, increment by 1. You see that on line number 3?
Yeah.
And then it's comma, and then you got full name, which is a varchar 50, not null, comma, birth date, which is a date type, not null. And then you'll see that that's inside your parentheses. On primary, you don't need that. You can get rid of that. That's basically just going to put it wherever you're creating this database, whatever drive or whatever file is the primary file for that database, it's basically saying, I'm going to put it on that primary file. If you have multiple files, and this gets into some like really advanced, SQL Server stuff that really that job belongs more to the SQL Server administrator. That would be where they would be involved in where these files are being stored and whatnot. But you're adding a constraint, and that constraint happens to be a primary key constraint. So when you put a primary key on a table, you're saying this is a constraint because one, that particular field or that particular column has to be unique. It cannot have nulls as a primary key, and it has to be a unique. In other words, if you try to insert 2 number 1s on 2 different rows, it's going to say, you're violating this constraint. This is a primary key. Every single value in this column has to be absolutely unique. So you can't do that. And so that's what that constraint does. So you're adding a constraint to the field person ID, right? And with statistics and all that stuff, you can remove it. You can remove all that because all those are default values. And then, so that sets up your primary key, and the 14 to 17, you can go ahead and delete that. That's pretty much, this would be the core of the code that you would write. So if you, let's say, for example, if you needed to create a table on a database where you didn't have access to connect to it in this form, they said, hey, you have a command line and you can only write queries. This is the code that you would write in order to do that. Let's go back to the diagram really quick.
Okay.
And let's go ahead and close this diagram and don't save the changes. Okay. And then refresh the tables. So we only have address and people. Let's go ahead and execute that script that you have, the create table temp. Yeah, you're still highlighting. Okay, cool. And let's go and refresh the tables.
Oh, it made the temp.
So whenever you're using the designers behind the scene are executing this code. You know what I mean? So if you go and open up your diagrams again, refresh your diagrams and open up the main diagram.
How do I open up the diagram?
You have to refresh the diagrams. So right click and refresh on diagrams. You have to highlight.
Database diagrams.
And then expand it and you'll see it. And then add the temp table.
I would just put add table.
Add table. Yep.
Okay. Oh, there we go.
All right. So go ahead and save this diagram. So you haven't changed the database. All you've done is just change the diagram. You added the table to it. And so let's go ahead and right click on temp and delete from database. And hit yes. Now you'll notice that the diagram hasn't been saved, so don't save it yet. Let's go and generate that script.
Okay.
So go up to Table Designer.
Oh.
And generate the change script. Highlight that stuff. And then go ahead and paste it over on the other tab. Yeah, you could get rid of that code. And then paste in that one. So really the only thing that you need is line 13. You can delete everything else.
Okay.
Line 13. So if you go back to your diagram, yeah, and close it and don't save it. And refresh your tables, make sure that that temp table is still there. It's still there, right? And go ahead and execute that. And refresh your tables.
It got deleted.
It got deleted. So this is probably going to be the best thing for you to be able to learn the syntax, okay? And trust me, even me with 20 years of experience with databases, I Google a lot of stuff because like, how do I do this again? It's like, damn it, you know, it's like so much syntax to remember. The important thing is knowing what it's capable of, not necessarily knowing how you do it. Obviously, if you know how to do it, you're going to become more efficient. But at least knowing the capabilities allows you to go and search as for, you know, for the syntax or how you enable something or how you disable something or how you delete or add and stuff like that. But the capability itself is what's important so that you can go and look for how do you do it, right? So whenever you're doing anything in the designers, and we're going to be using the designer a lot, but just be aware that there's actual code being executed in the background that does this work.
Okay.
Once we get into like our third and fourth application, these database scripts are going to become a lot more important. And so we're going to have to start saving some of these scripts and generating them and executing them, because as you're developing and you move into a production environment, or you go and you publish it to the website, those changes don't automatically go just because you did them on your machine, right? Somehow or other, they got to get executed and they have to go and run. They have to go and run so that whatever code you're releasing is updating your database. So that's where these scripts are going to come in handy. And you generate these scripts, but then you still add more to it in order to be able to make sure that these scripts run efficient and make sure that they run every single time and they're just not going to crash. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just be aware that whatever you do in the designers, there's code being generated. And we just have to learn what is the actual command that we need, because it does a bunch of things in there only because it doesn't know the state that the database is in. So it goes and does a bunch of setup, runs the actual line, and then sets a couple of things back or closes some transactions, stuff like that. But that's really what's going on behind the scene.
Interesting.
It's pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
All right. So that was your code challenge review.
Yeah.
So